Oh.
Alrighty, well, I'm Alex Carter.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we have a group name? That'd be cute if we did. No.
I don't know.
Like group one or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, group one.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So the first question, our personal reactions to these readings and stuff. Personally, I was just like, yeah, right on. Like this is not my first class where I've like talked about these kinds of things, and I was just like, this is pretty on point for like kind of things I've read in the past and things I agree with.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with excuse me. I definitely agree with you. I mean, this is my first class where I really like talked in and really dug in deep about like, like white supremacy and white immunity and all that jazz. But I definitely thought it was pretty interesting how in the TED Talk, how he brings up, the like right side of town versus like the wrong side of town and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, personally, like back home and everything, we've definitely, I've definitely heard about that for Charlotte and everything. It's like, oh, you want to go to Uptown Charlotte? Like, you don't want to go.
Yeah.
Like before you hit Uptown Charlotte, that's like where like the poor people live, and like that's where majority of like the homeless live and all that jazz. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember in what was that essay we just wrote, I was kind of talking about how like my middle school was in like the other side of town or whatever, but it's like the history of my middle school was that like it used to be the colored high school, so it was in like more like a black dominated like neighborhoods and stuff, like predominantly black neighborhoods. And it was like everyone's view of those were always like, oh, we're gonna get like kidnapped or killed because we live on this side of town. And I'm like, you're just black. So, but I mean, when I was younger, I didn't realize that. I was like, oh my gosh, are we on the wrong side of town? It's like you don't really realize until you look back.
Yeah, I'm also from Charlotte, and one thing is like whenever we went to this one school called Harding, people would always just be like, "Oh, this is like in a bad neighborhood, a bad place. We're gonna get shot or something like that." Whenever we go over there, and the reality was like, I don't really think that was the case at all.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, thinking back on it, like definitely back then, like I wasn't really, I was just like, oh yeah, that definitely is the bad part of town and everything. Cause like whenever I go, I would see like, homeless people and like all the different kinds of stuff. But like now as an adult and everything, I look back and I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter and everything. I don't think there's really a bad part of town or like good part of town,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um,
I guess one thing that was kind of frustrating to read, I forgot which specific article it was. Confronting racism is not about the needs and feelings of white people. With a lot of things, it's like whatever the author was talking about, how they would go to conferences and speak. The only there would be people who kind of take, I guess, offense to what she was saying about white people, and they would kind of like take it as a personal attack, even though it's just more of like this is just a thing that's been happening. There's been a lot of just like white privilege and oppression, and they just feel like it's an attack on them specifically, when in reality it's more of just like not them specifically, if that makes any sense. They just take it that way.
yeah.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, like, I also kind of don't get like why they would be so upset because they knew, I don't know, that like, I mean, I'm assuming like whenever she went to do these talks and everything, she would have like, a title for it and like something like explaining what the talk is gonna be about and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember there was one line in the article where it was like, I'm not gonna be able to find it. But they were talking about like how it was like a video maybe, and then like one white commenter was just like, you know, but like, does it matter or something, you know, like, oh, they were talking about like, oh, this sounds like white supremacy. And then, yeah, I was just like, yeah.
One thing that made me upset about like what one person said in the Confronting Racism is Not About the Needs and Feelings of White People article is that one white woman was like, after she went to this talk and everything, and she was like, your session was really nice, you said a lot of good things that'll be useful to a lot of people. And then she paused briefly and she said, the thing is, nothing you talked about today is going to help me make more Black friends. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, what? And everything, like, how? I just didn't understand it, because it's like, you can make
Yeah.
anyone you want and everything, like, no matter what their race is or anything, like, all you gotta do is just simply go up to them and be like, hi, my name is da-da-da-da, and everything. Would you want to get coffee, or want to do this sometime, and everything. It's no different than making friends with someone else.
Yeah. And it's weird when like white people make comments like that, because then it's like, as soon as, you know, maybe they all are called out on like racist things, they're all like, oh, I don't see color. I'm like, how can you be colorblind but then like always talking about your Black friends? Like, you know, like, what is it though? Like, you're obviously like not addressing like the problems, like you're just kind of avoiding it. And that's just like, I guess, what privilege is.
Saying someone is color, or saying that yourself is colorblind is also just incredibly just problematic, because you're just ignoring like a major identity about somebody by being like, oh, I don't see color, when it's like that's a part of who they are. That could be a part of their culture, and you're just kind of brushing it away. It's like, we're all human, but it's just like you're just forgetting important parts about themselves.
Exactly. Anderson, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, you guys pretty much took it all. Sorry, I'm not feeling very well today.
Good. We can look at the second question. How will this inform our future practice? I mean, I think kind of just like with everything you learn in any like social work class or helping profession class, it's kind of like, you know, like you need to take the knowledge you learn and like, you know, always be learning, and then like always try to like listen to the like narratives of like your clients and stuff, because like you're different, your perspective is always going to be different than theirs, and you know, just like try not to like, or not like just be aware of like your own like biases, and like your own different perspectives and experiences are going to be different than everyone else's, and so you just kind of like have to learn to like keep that in mind. And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like whenever we were writing like our personal personal assessment and everything, paper, whenever we were talking, because I mean, I know I talked about like my biases and everything towards other people and everything, just because I haven't been around them that much and everything. So definitely you want to push those aside and everything. And like, I even said in like my paper and everything, like you want to be like more informed and make sure to, you know, have specific what am I looking for? Resources and everything to like help out those people and everything, just because sometimes you might not be able to like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
yeah, no, I got you. I remember I was like writing my essay and I was like, I know what I feel, but I don't know how to like type it out in like APA, and yeah, it was rough. But yeah, I got you.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know, I feel like I've already like thought about everything, and like said it all in like my paper, and now I'm like going brain dead on exactly what I wrote. But like another thing about the confronting racism article that we were talking about, it's like I found one of the things I wanted to mention is like they said that she was like, just want someone to speak to a room of white people who know they're there because they are the problem. And that's like applies a lot to like how, you know, like specifically me as like a white person, like how my future practices are gonna have to like have that kind of like mindset. Cause I'm like, in a lot of people's perspective, it's like they have biases towards me because I am the problem. It's like, you know, like that's gonna be a very interesting relationship if I do have someone who's like I'm working with someone who comes from a completely different background than I am, like all 5 of those identities we talked about in the paper, like someone can be like opposite of me and like all of the things I wrote about. And so it's like in their minds, like they could maybe like dislike me for that because I've had a lot of privilege in my life. And yeah, and I can't like hate them for that because it's like, you know, like I know better and stuff, but it'll be hard to navigate for sure.
Yeah, I think just one good thing is just, I guess, research some of the either privilege that some people may have that you may not think about, or just the oppression that others may face. That's like a bit of insight to help with your practice. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I know for like me personally, like something that I talked about in my paper was how I don't know a lot about like Hispanics or Asians and everything, despite I have like some Asian family, but like we never really talk about anything. So I definitely would have to like do more research and insight into like their lives and different ways that, you know, they're oppressed and everything to try to figure out how, if I have a client coming in who are of either of those ethnicities, of how to help them.
Yeah, I feel like as a social work major, we have to always be learning and like becoming culturally aware, specifically like with other cultures, not our own, just to make sure that. Sorry, my internet's gone. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, it said it went out. But yeah, I forgot it.
One thing, I was looking back at the article or the one that we've been talking about, is she says that she posted on social media out of frustration saying if your anti-racism work prioritizes the growth and enlightenment of white America over the safety, dignity, and humanity of people of color, it's not anti-racism work, it's white supremacy. And I mean, like, and I kind of agree with that, just because I mean, I think it's important. I mean, I think it's important to like, you know, grow and enlighten yourselves about other people's cultures, but in order to really, you know, do that anti-racism work, you really need to dig deep and like really see how you can help those people and everything, whether that be like standing up for them if things happen. And like she said, like with doing stuff with safety, dignity, in the humanity, and like actually just taking a look at these people and realizing we're all the same, kind of. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like even like, wow, completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, because like even if like white people are like growing and being enlightened and stuff, like that's just like a positive thing for them, and that's not like, that's ignoring the point that like racism is like really, really negative and like affects like people's lives and like their safety. And then like I think it was this article where they talked about like this like the Black man who was just like pepper sprayed for no reason. And I'm like, that would not really ever happen to me. So it's like, it's great that I'm growing or whatever, but that's not the point, you know? So
Yeah, there's a big difference between just knowing this problem and actually helping with it. And I feel like a lot of people are just like, I know that this is a problem. I know it exists. I feel, I guess, in a sense, woke, but in reality, it's just like they're not doing anything. They're just like, I know it's happening. I'm going to tell people to, I guess, stop. And besides that, I'm just going to say I know things.
yeah, and I kind of like how like bold the statement is. Like, it's white supremacy. It's like a lot of people be like kind of like, no, it's not, you know, but it's like calling it out just like that bluntly like that is very much like kind of needed, because a lot of people don't, I don't know, want to listen, or like a lot of times when like talks about anti-racism are like on the media and stuff, it's very much like softer, you know, and then it's like, I don't know if that's getting through to people. But then at the same time, like if it's too aggressive, people are going to be like, oh, F you, and then they're going to get defensive. So it's hard, but I appreciate the boldness in this article, because I'm like, ooh, that feels uncomfortable. But then I'm like, okay, but it's for a good reason. Like they have a good point. So
I forgot what the name of the video was, but it was the one that we watched in class about the guy who was talking about going against the idea of like saying that we're all human.
Mhm.
It's like one thing he was talking about was just like, in order to help fix a problem, we have to get uncomfortable. But a lot of people are like saying like things, or being like we're all human by saying it's like, I'm not comfortable with you expressing your problems, just conform to my comfort level, and then we could just kind of brush this problem onto the table and just kind of just completely ignore everything that's happening.
So from the other article talking about the history behind whiteness and all the jazz, one thing I found interesting is how it says disagreement reigns and has reigned since the modern scientific notion of human races was invented in the 18th century Enlightenment. Which I don't know. I just found that pretty interesting, because like I personally didn't know that and everything, how there was a notion that it was invented in the 18th century. I thought, oh no, it just came about, you know, whenever,
yeah,
you know.
I'm also like, I don't know. Yeah, like I'm like, I don't know what that would mean to like people who are actually living in that time. Like it sounds like maybe it's just like the you know, like more privileged upper class who had like time to be academics or whatever kind of came up with this notion. And I'm like, but the reality of like people who were being oppressed probably were still like just like being oppressed, and it was like, okay, it's a great, this notion has been created. Yeah, this article is very history-y, which I don't know how it like actually is like I wish like it was like a way for us to like learn more about like people from this time who are like actually the ones being oppressed, because most of the stuff we get from that time is like people who are in positions of power and had time and like privilege to be academics and writers and whatnot. Enlightenment did people, enlighteners, I don't know what the word is.
Yeah.
But as far as like maybe like applying like this history that we learned from this article to like a private practice, like my future practice, like it's important to know the history, and like it affects like everything about us, you know, like even like how we're born. Like I think it's like like in all my classes where I've like learned about like evolutionary psychology and stuff, they're like, you know, like if your ancestors were like constantly like, you know, like living lives where they were like anxious and like always being like oppressed, and like that results in like, you know, that kind of the genetic component of like the potential to have mental disorders being like kind of passed down, you know. And so like the history is like kind of like ingrained in our genes, you know. So that's really an important thing to kind of remember, you know, like because especially like with like diagnosing mental disorders and stuff, it's like, you know, like people have like different risk levels for things, and so like that's a big thing to keep in mind as well for future helping peoples and stuff.
Definitely. Well, I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Is there any like related topics anyone else to talk about that aren't just about the articles? Just, I don't know, anything interesting there y'all are thinking?
hmm. I'm thinking back to like our last class that we had, and how the guy was talking about how, oh my gosh, what's the saying that he said that he doesn't like? You mentioned it, Chris.
That we are all human.
Yeah, that's it. I was totally blanking. But I guess like what I like mentioned in class was like how, like looking back, like I didn't really see a problem with it, how saying like we're all human, but now I guess listening to like how he explained it and how much of an impact and everything can have on him, it makes me rethink and everything, saying like if I were to like say that, I mean of course I don't think I would ever say that and everything, but if I were to like say it and everything, like I wouldn't want to, you know, put out the wrong message and everything, because I mean everyone, we are all human in a sense, but like also that doesn't mean that other people like experience different things than other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like there's only a few contexts where maybe like saying we're all human is like appropriate, but like, yeah, like talking about like any sort of like oppression or like really like any identity, because there's always going to be an identity that's different from yours that's more oppressed than yours, or vice versa. And so it's like it's never really appropriate in those situations.
Cool. Do you guys have anything else?
No.
Alrighty.